Hi everyone. You usually don't see me like this because I'm the caricature, but today we kind of needed to do it this way. Um, this episode is going to be incomplete. Something went wrong with my audio and it cuts out towards the end. So I apologize for that. We're going to redo this episode, but in the sake of making sure you guys get content today, we're going to release what we have. And this episode will be redone in its entirety later. We do have the anime episode for you guys next week. Ian has assured me it will be ready, and we've already recorded Nippon and I think the Dark Elves and a couple of other places. We've already recorded like 4 other episodes. Just Ian's a little behind, needs to get caught up. Hopefully he doesn't mind me calling him out. He's a very good editor. It's just life, and I got up at stupid o'clock in the morning to record this and make sure it got uploaded. So, hi, I'm gonna go brush my hair now. Enjoy the episode for what it is.
Oh, hi there, Ginger. It has been a couple of weeks. I have missed you.
It has been a couple of weeks, Fee. I have also missed you too. I've missed doing this.
I have missed the dulcet tones of your.
Of my voice.
Yes. Last time we did Go Trek and Felix as a side episode. Now we have three
Which that
regular
was
episodes and then another side episode.
I really want the Go Trick and Felix one to go get some traction because man, that one was fun. One, it was fun to record, but two, it was also just a fun novel to listen to, and I would actually be interested to if it gets the traction to then either do more chapters in that book or from follow what you want to do on that and just jump books around.
I honestly would like to jump to a second book, but we would have to, but for the rest of it, for the other books, it's not like the first book where you can read a chapter and you have a complete story. No, the next books you'd have to go through the whole book, which even the audio versions of are like 10 hours. So you'd have to listen to it an hour in a day for 10 days to get through it. Not
Right. Hence,
because not because you couldn't listen to 10 hours in one day, but because damn boy, she dense.
and
Anyway,
also, yeah,
how are you doing? How's Hawaii
I'm
treating
doing
you?
all right. I have a little bit of a cough, but it is nothing compared to. I'm kind of glad we haven't been able to do one for a bit because, like last week, even like before the election, I had this really bad cough, and one of the downsides I'll get to this, I hinted to it. Of my job, I work 7 days a week, and one of the problems is I'm the only audio technician. So even though I could take work off, I really kind of can't, which I'll get into more details on that. So normally when I do get sick, I will like take off from work, or usually with my work, I'll be like, hey, I'm not available for a couple of days. I'm sick. Which I'll kind of,
Right.
yeah, which I think I might as well just kind of get. This is one we'll timestamp. If for those of you who do not want to hear the story of what I've been up to and just want to listen to this, we'll make this mark here and then put in timestamp for this one. But I will now tell kind of what's been going on in a bit more detail about my life working on a cruise ship. So I'll start with the plane journey itself, which was basically it was because I live in a state that is not a major hub airport. I had to go Vermont, Chicago, Chicago, Denver, then Denver to Maui. So what was hilarious on each when I went to Chicago, landed in Chicago and then Denver, I made both of my flights, but both times they were boarding when I got to the gate. Now I was obviously way in the back, so I'm in like the last boarding group, but it was still a little weird going through all of that. And the only real highlight was when I was trying to book my tickets. Well, not actually. I was trying to be like, oh, okay, I want to get the aisle seat. But because Norwegian Cruise Line paid for my ticket, they went, of course, as cheap as possible. And United I don't know if you've flown United recently, Fee. They will
I
nickel
have
and dime.
I have avoided United since they dragged that doctor off the plane and broke his nose because they wanted a seat for one of their crew people.
Yeah, and I would have loved to fly in other airlines, but it's one of those when you're in a position where someone else is paying for your ticket and it's your first contract. But yeah, United will. I don't know. I don't recall other airlines doing this, but United is one that will charge you extra if you want a window or aisle seat. And I'm like, fuck you. But I was thought, oh, I'm so clever. I figured out because on the plane I'll be taking a 777. That version of it had a row that only had two seats, and I'm like, haha, I found a loophole. And it worked until they rearranged the plane and it like just because mechanical issues happens even in the best of airlines, and my Denver to Maui flight got rearranged different plane, so I lost the that one. And I had a guy, I'm sure you've encountered this, Fee. I sit down and I'm a tall person, I'm not small, but I try to just take up my space in my seat when I'm on a plane, and I get up, go to the bathroom, or do whatever, and I come back. And the guy literally says to me, and I quote, I paid for the whole seat, not a quarter of the seat. And I'm like, oh, fuck. These are one of these people who I have to deal with the entire flight. And I thought, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm mansplaining and not manspreading, sorry, not splaining, and not realizing it. And it was just bizarre, but whatever. And even at some point, I did have to go to the bathroom because Denver to Maui is a 6-hour flight. Your bladder is going to need to be emptied at some point. But it was still this unnecessary level of like anxiety you don't need. And Bucko, I doubt you're listening to this, but hey, fuck you, asshole. Anyways, and I'm just thinking the whole time, like, hey, maybe I was just an asshole about it. And when we land, he gets up, and we're at the back of the plane. Not the back, but we're in the back section. And people are, filing out. The dude, heavyset guy, he just starts shoving his way through people just to get off the plane. And everyone's just like, dude, what the hell? So I'm like, okay, it wasn't me being an asshole. He was the asshole. But what's even funnier is I'm not running. I'm just walking to the gate to get my baggage claim. I got there before him. Because somebody else probably called him out on his shit. But to get on the positive note, I finally got to see a movie I've been always wanting to see, the original Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
Okay.
Which I was like, okay, this is a good movie. But what's bizarre, someone else was watching the like recent new version of it, and it was like weird seeing how I've not seen the other one in its full, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm doubting it was as good as the original. Very rarely are remakes.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting. What was like a 10-minute fight scene in the remake. 3 scenes that progressed the plot happened in this time the remake had one stupid long fight scene.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like, guys, why are we remaking these movies? But anyways, and I also started to watch a little bit of like Tony Hawk's documentary, and I was like, huh, which is fascinating. I'll just end on this. Tony Hawk, one of the most, even if you don't know skateboarding, you know who Tony Hawk is. What's fascinating in it, when he started out, he was actually very weak and a very kind of lanky person. Still is to this day, but he likes to describe like why one of the reasons he did so well and progressed was his level of determination. He is the definition of anime protagonist. Does not give up. He's not the strongest. He's not the fastest, but he just did not give up, and that's kind of one of the many reasons that kind of led to his success, which I just found very fascinating. So to kind of just jump around on some other things, got on the ship, and I was working on like an hour or two of sleep. And at least for any vessel that is flagged in the U.S., because that's one of the special things about Pride of America, and I think even other ships, I haven't worked on other ships yet, so I can't say. But once we get landed and settled in, we then have to go through the ship, and we have to fill out this paper that says we know a route, and we have to write it out. Write a route from where our cabin is to where our evacuation stations are. And trying to do that and throw in everything is kind of a bit of a whirlwind of everything getting thrown at you all at once. Then kind of what else happened on there? Got my uniforms, which, I'll rant about my uniforms at another point. But I was trying to think, just one of the disappointing things though that hit me first was when we're given the tour and we're getting shown to the Hollywood Theater. This, to some people, I'll be speaking Latin, but when I was interviewed, I was told, oh yeah, we have a Yamaha CL5. And I was like, sweet, that's one of my favorite audio consoles to use. I get there, and it is a Yamaha M7, which basically was a soundboard released in 2013 that has been retired twice. Yamaha has replaced it with 2 new models, and I'm like, oh my god. And I later found out I was also kind of not told things where a lot of production shows that used to be on the ship are no longer on the ship, because in 2022, Norwegian Cruise Line determined that entertainment wasn't making money. So on certain ships, they gutted entertainment. And I'm like, really, guys? You're trying to compete with Royal Caribbean, MSC, Holland, Carnival. If you're in business, if you're trying... Yeah, go on.
Entertainment is not supposed to make money on a cruise ship. It is supposed to make it where the people have a memorable incident so they come back to the cruise ship for round 2.
Or the cruise line, but either way, your point still stands. And and the thing was, what made, like, to a degree, I obviously am the camp of no, keep entertainment. They cut, like, I think it was Kinky Boots, and there was another show that was like a Broadway show, so one could argue, okay, those shows cost a lot of money to keep, but the shows we had on our ship, we had production level shows. We had a show called Lights, Camera, Music, which was kind of a melody of shows, so I'm sure there was still royalties we had to pay, but it wasn't the level of something that's currently, on Broadway. And our numbers kind of tank in terms of our ratings because we have to work with what we do, but the problem is also we have this problem where it's like we don't have as many shows, so usually by the time Friday rolls around, people are just fatigued, and of like, just because it's mostly like we have a band, we have a principal guitar player and a piano player, and then for our other entertainment we have a magician and a comedian. And the problem is they schedule them so many times that it's like they get overloaded with choice, and the problem is that it's not even like a lot of good choices. Not putting down the performers, but there's so many things on the schedule, but then at the same time there's not as much to do that are really big things. So that's kind of a little bit of a frustration of like, I had originally planned, I'm like, okay, I might work on the ship for 2 or 3 years. And when I found that out, I'm like, nope, I'm going to do my one contract and then go on the other, what are called the international ships in the fleet. Because I'm like, and it's not like, oh, I have to be working, Kinky Boots or any of like the really big shows. But I'm like, no, there needs to be something beyond, magician, comedian, and that. And one of the other problems is with that overhaul change, as an audio tech, I was told in my interview process, 90% of the time I would be in the Hollywood Theater, and 10% I might help around the rest of the ship. It's more a 60-40, because there's not as much going on in Hollywood, and there's all this like little things being put around. And I'm not saying, it's below me to, set up a few microphones for a little thing and then walk away, but it's just like, that's not what I was hired to do. I was hired to be the audio technician in your main events space. So there's always that frustration, but whatever, that I kind of got over. I'm like, hey, I'll see it as a learning experience. That way when I kind of go up the ranks in other ships or whatever, I kind of will know, okay, this is how you should run these events, here's how you shouldn't. But the biggest pain in my ass has been my technical supervisor by the name of Morgan. I'm going to preface this statement saying, I have had many...
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. I need you to do me a favor.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to pause recording. 3, 2, 1.
So
what's...
So
who is this?
Yes. So I have had many stage... I've worked out as many stage managers. This one has been one of the worst. She will put me down. And the thing is, she also is just inexperienced. And you work with someone who. I rather work with someone who thinks they know nothing than someone who thinks they know everything. Because
Mm-hmm.
she micromanages the living daylights out of everything. And it just, I'm like. And it's also just. She's inexperienced in the job. And I'm not saying, oh, inexperience leads to bad leadership. But it's like, no, there's just toxicness all over it. And thankfully, she's going on vacation now. And someone, C, is kind of taking over. And already we're just like, oh my God, this is so much better. Because, like, if I would make a mistake, M, I felt like I was getting hell rained upon me. And I'm like, I just made a mistake. This is live theater. It happens. While, like, with C, he, like, I fired a Q too early. And he was just like, whatever. It happened. And also just like, with M, she wouldn't, it felt like, to a certain point, I'm like, she would micromanage every mixing decision I was doing. And I'm at a certain point where it's like, how about this point, I just walk away and you do my job because it seems like you think you know more than me. And I'm not also, just side note, I'm not one of those audio mixers who go, oh, I know everything. No, someone might know more than me. But it's all about, the proper way to give constructive criticism. Like, perfect example was C. Like, last night we were just playing, post-show music after the event was over. And he just said, it's just a little loud. And that was fine. I was like, okay, I get it. I'll turn it down a little bit. But with M, she'd be like, it's too loud. Turn it down more. Turn it down more. And I'm obviously paraphrasing, but you get what I'm saying. Is there's better ways to give constructive criticism and not make it sound like it's an attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, coupled with, just other things, kind of made what should have been a fun kind of a job not be fun. And it's just, for some days and weeks, it was just great. And there's we're told the whole policy of, like, oh, there's no retaliation if you tell on someone. Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, especially when you're in a small department, it's kind of obvious when you've made you've complained about someone particularly, so that's always a problem. But it's, without me going on, because I can go on for this for a while, I'm finally kind of getting settled in, and it is nice kind of for me to at least just live, quote unquote, on my own, even though I do have a roommate. But for me, it was just
Hi,
great.
Ginger's roommate.
I know there's no one in the. I know. I made sure I even chatted with my roommate, be like, "Hey, at 2:00, I'm recording a podcast." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And so it's just me in the room right now, which that's another thing that just daily things, because at home I'm used to just having, even though I live with my mother, I have my own room, and she has hers. Having a roommate in a place that is very small, yeah, that'll grind on you, even if you have a great roommate. There's just something about, especially after, like, been so used to living in my own, having my own bedroom. I won't fill in the blanks for all those that are listening, but even, like, very normal things of just, like, having moments alone, knowing that your roommate could come in at any point, just kind of definitely makes it harder to recharge after a day. And, like, even though, like, the food's okay, but there are some days where the food's not so much. And the problem is, and this is a problem, like, whenever you're serving, especially when you have a diverse group of people that are working for you, because on a cruise ship, even with Pride of America, you are, where it has to be 70% American citizens. That is still a very wide, diverse group of people with different tastes, different backgrounds. But man, sometimes I feel like, and I have utmost respect for the people who work in our crew mess, but it's like, it's not the people who work in the crew mess, it's, it's the people higher up in the chain who are giving them the recipes that I'm like, did you even taste this? Or did you at least have someone that isn't you taste it? Because, like, some of the food, I'm like, you have overspiced this to, like, hell and back. I like some heathen food, I'm fine, but you know what I mean, Fee? I'm sure you've been in a scenario where you've been to some kind of buffet where you're like, Dude, even an Indian would go, hey, tone it down. But one of the advantages, at least in my department, is we have what's called PAX access, passenger access. So we can eat in the certain areas on the ship that where the passengers can go, because hence also because our job requires us to be in passenger areas. And also one of the nice things is we can go off the ship, and if we have the time off, and eat in places,
Yeah.
which is nice to kind of just also explore like local cuisine or just like neat little food places when we can. And but it is. I'll just kind of end on this because I'll probably chat more on others, but I don't want to make this a bit hard to get too long. It is still nice that when I'm actually mixing, I'm getting constant experience of just being on a mixing console, because one of the downsides when I was back home was like I'd get work for weeks and then nothing. So it's like that skill set, it just kind of would feel like it dulled. But now it's like, okay, I'm constantly doing this. My ear is constantly getting better and better. So and one of the other nice things too, during a training at the end, long story short, I had asked the person like, hey, after this I'd be interested in working in international ships, pretty much the rest of the NCL fleet. And he basically went, normally I tell people they're kind of SOL, but he saw what position they went. But in your case, that's an exception, because audio technician is a very in demand position. So I can easily, once I'm done with this contract, if I want to work on, the ship that goes in the Mediterranean or, Panama Canal or whatever, they're pretty much going to go, okay, we have a vacancy here. All right, pick your ship, to a degree. Like I won't be able to have like, pick of the litter, but I'll be able to transfer.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's good.
what have you been up to, Phoebes? Anything that
Well, we covered what you've been up to, media, something that scratches your butt, all sorts of stuff.
something that
So,
scratches your butt?
well, yeah, something that scratches your butt.
Well, usually when you scratch your ass, it's not.
See, had to make you smile today.
Yeah. It has been a good day. I was just venting over something that's been over the past 2 months, but yeah. I haven't unfortunately been able to catch a lot of your streams, Fee. What games you've been playing?
I haven't had that many streams in the last couple of weeks. I've been deeply sick. I've recovered from that. So if we tried to record last week, it would have been coughing, hacking, and general malfeasance. So I recovered from that. I'm back to exercising, which I am on a 120-day challenge where I have to exercise high intensity something every day. So every day it has to be something that will make me huff, puff, and sweat. So the first 2 days was biking. Yesterday was rock climbing. Today, after we're done with the podcast, I'm going to get on the VR headset for half an hour. What else? I did see. I did finally get to. I made a huge mistake Tuesday night. Because what I've been doing with the bike was I said, okay, put on a movie you've wanted to see, sit on the bike, and pedal through the whole movie.
Yeah.
So I did that for the first 2 days, and that was a movie called Sea Beast on Netflix. Which, I mean, the writing for Sea Beast isn't great. The animation is fantastic, and the voice acting put everything they had into it. But man, they needed some better writers.
Sea Beast. I have not heard of that one.
It's an animated film about people who go out into the ocean in like the age of sail and exploration, hunting down sea monsters.
It feels like, and I hate to put this down, it looks like a knockoff DreamWorks movie.
It kind of, sort of is.
Yeah, there's a look those movies have. Like, it doesn't look like they're trying to, but yeah.
But it's only like an hour and 12 minutes, and then I was like, okay, so that wasn't good. It was actually genuinely fun to make fun of it. But I did, I pedaled the bike through the whole thing. So I turned around, and I said, okay, let's watch another bad movie. and I watched The Secret Life of Pets, which is very cutely advertised, but man, does it need some help. Because I hadn't seen it. It's like 8 years old.
Hmm.
So I said, okay. And then Tuesday night I sat down. I said, and I was Netflix brought up recommendations, and it said Oppenheimer, and I'm like, I haven't seen that. Click, start, sit on the bike and start pedaling,
Oh
and
no.
and up on the screen it comes up Oppenheimer director's cut,
Uh-oh.
and I go, okay, how bad could this possibly be?
Famous last
And I
words.
started pedaling. I started pedaling at 10 p.m., thinking at worst I would be done at midnight. I'm on a reverse slope bike, so like you lay back, and most of the tension and muscle exercise is your lower legs,
Mm-hmm.
your uh your not your hip instead of your thigh, and your lower back
Right.
your lower back is doing all the pushing, and your hip and calf are doing the pulling back. Instead of where if you were sat upright, it would be your thighs doing the work. So I'm doing that, and I start getting tired, and I go, "Ooh, we can't be that much longer, can it?" And I look, and I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm only halfway through the entire movie." Oppenheimer director's cut is 3 hours and 38 minutes before they roll credits. And I said, "Well, I'm committed." And needless to say, Wednesday morning, my back. It's It's Thursday night, and my back still hurts.
Fee, this is what I love about you. Your level of determination, but then realizing sometimes it benefits you that you don't stop, but then there are moments like with this where I'm like, Fee, please stop.
I'm so glad that Wednesday was rock climbing day, because rock climbing is exclusively thighs, feet, arm, and upper chest muscles and
Mm.
upper back muscles. Your lower back does none of the work when you're rock climbing. It's all you're so if it was if my lower back needed to do some work, I would have just been like, nope, I'm done.
So, well, let's talk a little bit without turning it into a full blown review. I have seen Oppenheimer. Now, it wasn't the director's cut, but still, I have thoughts about that movie. I think it is a
My
good movie.
thought, my honest thought is, I'm glad that they told Oppenheimer's story mostly without having to embellish it.
Yeah, I think it's a good movie. My criticisms are oh god, who's the director? I'm so annoyed I can't space it. He did the Batman trilogy.
Um, Christopher Nolan.
Yes, my one of my biggest gripes with Nolan as a director, and many people have this gripe, is his wrong. I will call him wrong to his face on this audio mixing belief, where he mixes the dialogue so low, and his excuse is that's how real people talk in real life. No, you dense motherfucker. If you can't hear somebody in real life, you'll either ask them speak louder, you lean in, or they realize you can't hear them and they will talk louder. I hate how he mixes dialogues in movies, and I hate that some of the industry has followed that you have to watch subtitles. And anyone says, "Oh, people can't hear." No. If you watch a movie before like Nolan's style of mixing became popular, you can hear it at low volumes. I cannot wait for the stupid audio mixing trend in movies to go away because I want to hear the dialogue. Like Interstellar is another example. Anyways, the movie itself, what was annoying, I did find it a good movie, but there was points where it's like, perfect example, where it doesn't, I always believe you should think your audience is smart, but when you're doing a biopic that jumps around in time, you do need to give the audience some time. And I think the perfect example is when Germany invades Poland. And I'm even going to my mother, I'm like, I think this is when Germany invades Poland, but we have to then get out of the movie because it's given us enough hints that that's the time and era it is, but then we have to think about it. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah, so that part annoyed me. And also, when it does the flash forward to the court hearing and it's in black and white. That's how I think the trope's stupid, but you're supposed to do a flash. If you do flashback to the earlier times you do in black and white. You don't do a flash forward in a black and white. And it's just like such an annoying artistic decision for what is a very well acted movie, a very well put together movie.
Yeah, no, I agreed that there were some issues with the transition, but I think that was a decision to make them jarring on purpose.
But still, at the end of the day,
Um,
yeah, I still enjoyed my time. But I'm like, this could have been easily better with some decisions that someone needed to have said to the man, no. Now, have you seen
but
Barbie? Because we got to talk about Barbie if you've seen
I
Oppenheimer.
haven't seen Barbie. I haven't got that far.
I think I did Barbie first, then Oppenheimer. I love how that's become an unintentional meme.
I also like the fact that they went over the unsuccessful cabinet nomination as like the core basis for why the movie was taking place,
Yeah.
because you have to understand how rare a Senate rejection for a cabinet position is
Mm-hmm.
in history. Like, from the start of the US to present day, there have only been 8 Senate votes to reject a cabinet nomination outright. 8. Um, One was Andrew Jackson nominating Tanley, John Tyler nominating Cushing, and Dave. John Tyler just had the worst time because the Senate rejected 4 of his nominations,
Oof.
like flat out. Um, and then Andrew Johnson had 1 rejection. This was just after the Civil War. Um, and it wasn't just he was rejected. Stanberry was accepted and then impeached and removed from his cabinet position.
Ooh.
Um, but like in post World War II, there have been two times. And I want to emphasize this: there have been more than 2 presidents. Like, I think the number's like 20. There have been 15 presidents now since the end of World War II, and only two, and you have 14 cabinet members. There have only been 2 rejections.
Yeah.
That's astronomically low. And the reason he was rejected is beautiful, and it's the fact that he was shown to be a vindictive, unremorseful piece of shit.
Mm-hmm. And Robbie Downey Jr. did a great job of playing him. It was like so good. It took me a while to realize it was
I know,
Robbie.
I didn't realize it was Robbie Downey Jr. till like the point where he's like, I'm gonna get rejected, aren't I?
Yeah, or something. He
And
just
it's like,
some little verbal tick that just all actors have. I'm like, oh wait, that's Robbie Downey Jr.
yeah, I didn't realize it was him until he had that verbal tick that happens when Robert Downey Jr. gets mad.
Yeah.
And I congratulate him. I know he's working on making it where that verbal tick doesn't exist anymore, because that's something that popped up on my Blue Sky feed. By the way, everybody, Blue Sky, move over there.
Oh my God,
Just
yes,
go.
Blue Sky. Like
Just go.
I've both my alt and my main. I've switched over to Blue Sky. So much like when I would go on Twitter, I like, and I even way before I always hated Twitter's thing in the top right where it forces you to look at like all the trending hashtags, and and I hated that feature because I'm like, I just want content, and I love that Blue Sky doesn't have that, and every time I go to Blue Sky, I feel inspired.
And the recent addition of being able to, if someone quotes you and you don't like what they're doing, or they're trying to dogpile you or troll you or something, you can remove their quote. And all it shows is what they said, and below it it says user has removed this quote.
Nice.
So now they look like an idiot because no one knows what they're talking about. And when you remove their quote and block them, if you have someone blocked, no one can vicariously comment on a post they made if you have them blocked. In other words, that person cannot link to my account or quote anything I've said on someone else that I have blocked at all. It just says no. So you can't have your posse running around terrorizing people and expect it to work, because as soon as you block one person, all of your anything that links back to your account is removed from the post from the comment section entirely from public view. And I'm like, oh my god, that's ingenious. There's so little rage bait. Um, there's an active effort to get rid of bots, and moderation is handled by people. Even if it takes longer, it's still handled by people.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
just
like, I get it. I get it. It's not perfect,
but
but
damn, it's better than Twitter X. It's so much better. Like, I even saw a comic where there was like people wearing X shirts. They'd be like, "Oh, you're leaving," and how dare you? And it's like, in the background has a bunch of bigots, Trump supporters. Yes, if you voted for Trump, you're a fucking bigot. You supported the wrong side. I
let's
don't fucking care. But
let's not get overly political. But yes, if you
yes,
voted for
but to get
Trump,
back, but then on the other comic, it showed the people who had joined Blue Sky,
you
and the X supporters are all like, "Hi, what? It's a big pro," and literally all the Blue Skies do is just look away and go, "Oh, we're having such a good time over here." Like, we don't care that the big party is having a big party. We like our little party over here. It's a fun party.
yeah, like I feel inspired. I feel like I'm having a nice time. It feels good.
Yeah, and like there is
So
little negative things here and there, but that's all, any platform. But it's like overall, it feels like there's hope in this platform.
yeah, I mean, it's social media. There's gonna be problems with it, but like I have removed Twitter from. I'm making an active effort to remove Twitter from most of my places and replace it with a Blue Sky link. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh, okay. The other thing that has happened this week is I started my what is it called? What is it called? What is it called? Right, I started my Christmas sale. So
Mm.
if you want one of my books, if you want something from me, if you want anything, I put everything on sale for 25% off. I'm barely making a profit, or I'm not making a profit. I'm just selling everything I have. And I even put books and the really nice blackjack poker sets. Those are all on sale. You can just this is the cheapest they're ever going to be. Um, so I did all of that. That's just it had to happen. I'm getting ready to go see my wife in the UK, and in the meantime, that covers media I've seen, what I've been up to. I think it's about time we get into meat and potatoes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. All right. Welcome back for any of those who used the timestamp, and thank you for all those who listened to that. All right. So, what are we talking
Yes.
about today, Fee?
Well, I have two quotes. And the reason I have two quotes is because quotes about this particular place tend to be short. The first one is, a government? You call that a government? It looks like an invention of a deranged snotling. Count Claude Vilcrox of Polorin to the court of Emperor Karl Franz. And the other thing, the mountains that ring the three natural sides of the natural lands of our home are like walls of a stout castle. These days, however, those walls are so thinly manned the castle is set to fall apart. Albert Kornhammer, a priest of Sigmar. We're going to be talking about the
Wait,
Empire,
hold on,
folks.
hold on. Wait. We have to pause right there. That was a quote from someone from Sigmar. What?
That was a quote of a priest of Sigmar, yes.
Reminder, just because it's been a bit. Sigmar is.
The guy who founded the Empire, created the elector count system, and walked off and became a god.
Okay, good. I'm glad before I asked before because my brain went somewhere else. I'm glad I confirmed. Anyways. I thought
Right.
I got for a moment because here's what my brain went. My brain mixed Sigmar and Skaven for a moment, and I was like, "Huh?" But okay, good to know. Sigmar. Anyways, continue.
The Empire of Men. I'm now going to issue the most famous quote. It's from Emperor Magnus the Pious. Three things make the Empire great: faith, steel, and gunpowder.
Okay.
That's what the man said. It is made up of 11 Elector Count provinces. Now, what an Elector Count is basically, in short, what the Empire really would be considered on our map would be a kingdom with no duchies. Each Elector Count is a count of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes simply called an Elector. He's the highest noble, second to the Emperor, and he basically rules over a province. And the reason they're called Elector Counts is because the Emperor is not given by birthright.
Hmm.
They vote on who the Emperor is.
So we can literally do the Monty Python bit. You don't vote for kings.
It gets weirder. Gets weirder.
Okay,
The
you get to
Elector
vote.
Counts
Mm-hmm.
can also impeach the Emperor
Fee, it's
and remove him from office.
Fee, you're basically describing democracy with extra steps.
Except the nobles aren't elected. The nobles are actually born into their positions.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's less democracy and more oligarchy.
But still interesting. But
Except,
mm-hmm.
I do have an exception. The halfling Mootland is not ruled by a noble. They vote on which of their elders are in charge. So technically, the Mootland is a representative democracy.
But also we've determined that the halflings again, why they're my favorite race. The more again, Fee, the more you tell me about the halflings every time, the more I like them.
So we're gonna get into talking, and I'm going to So I'm checking to make sure that's entirely correct real quick, and that all the other provinces are classified feudal autocracies with administrative positions for anyone below the rank of noble. Nordland and Ostland are strictly autocratic. There's no administrative decisions. The nobles decide if you're in charge, what you're in charge of, and how. You have to suck up to some count or countess. Cool. So with that said, we're gonna go over the history of the Empire. This is gonna be a longer episode, and I apologize for that. I'm gonna try to get through it as quickly as I humanly possibly can, but I know there's a lot of information. So first off, the Empire was founded because a man named Sigmar said, "I'm tired of these greenskins and I'm tired of these chaos guys in this place. Let's get rid of them and make a place where humans can be humans." And then he went off and went on what could only be described as a crusade.
Go ahead. With the special Warhammer that the whole series is named after.
No, he didn't start with that.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He only got that after the first 20 years of his campaign, when he saved the king of the dwarves. And they asked him, "All right, we owe you a great debt. What do you want?" "I want a hammer." And they made him the best hammer that's ever been made. And he just kept going. And full steam ahead, no questions asked, for 29 years.
So
he beat... Go ahead.
So just for timeline of the hammer. So he fought for 20 years, saved the Dwarf King, then got the hammer.
Yep.
So he was just fighting with a regular ass sword or whatever he was using for those first 20 years.
For those first 20 years, he wasn't just fighting with a regular ass sword. He just fought with things he found on the battlefield until they broke and then threw them aside and grabbed the next thing.
Damn, I can see why this guy's such a badass.
He is depicted in both artwork and novelization. There's actually like a three-part series called the Rise of Sigmar that is the novelization of how he became Sigmar. Um, and it's the reintroduction of the old world after the Games Workshop brought it back. Yeah, that's right, Age of Sigmar guys. Look, I know you have fun, and I want you to have fun with your Age of Sigmar, but please tell Games Workshop leave my old world alone and let us have both. We can have both. It's fine. Anyway, he he fought with axes, maces. He would just use whatever was on hand. If he didn't have anything, there is a depiction where he holds an orc war boss down with bare hands and beats the orc to death bare-fisted.
Damn. And he's just a
And he
regular
didn't.
vanilla human. He doesn't have any like weird magic powers. He's just a determined dude.
He is just a regular vanilla human, but because people start having belief in him, the collective faith placed in him causes him to start gaining powers.
Okay, okay, let's go. That's pretty cool. It is literally the it is yeah. It's just cool. Let's go. Keep going.
When not fighting greenskins, when not dealing with chaos invaders, when not dealing with Skaven, um, he used a combination of guile, diplomacy, bribery, and war to unite the human tribes in this region together. If you couldn't be talked into joining him, he would bribe you. If you couldn't be bribed into joining him, he would remove you from power and put someone in power who would join him. If that couldn't be done, he would just invade. And one by one, he got every single human tribe in the area of the Empire to agree to be a part of the Empire. And he didn't get to. He got to Kislev, saw them, and he said, "You know, we can't win this." So he got Kislev to agree to never invade the Empire. And Kislev, to their credit, has never invaded the Empire.
Kislev is just a group of humans, right?
Just another group of humans.
Okay.
And after the final battle to unite the Empire at Blackfire Pass, which is this pass on the southern mountains that's referred to as the World Edge Mountains, because as far as humans of the Empire are concerned, those mountains are the edge of the world.
Map
They're
time.
not. Yes, map time. They're not the edge of the world. Actually, we found something really cool
Ooh.
that's going to be really useful. So someone has made an interactive map. And I'm going to link it to you. And it's super highly detailed. And it's like, you remember like old days when you had like flash games that you could just click on the browser and start interacting with? It's designed to do exactly that. So you
Yeah.
can sit here and jump around and you just pull it and it moves. And you can zoom out and it's everything. It's the entirety of everything clear to Cathay right now, and they're working on expanding it. I think they just started adding the regions of Araby.
Okay, damn.
So they're working on expanding it. So for the Empire episode here, so we're where it says Black Mountains, and over on the right hand side of the huge lake called Blackwater, there is the World's Edge Mountains. So he finally drove all of the major greenskin tribes past the World's Edge Mountains. He drove them out. He campaigned on, I will get rid of the orcs. And that man got rid of the orcs. At which point he saw the wisdom in two things. One, he could not stay. If he was the sole unifying force to this empire, well, he saw the wisdom in three things actually. If he was the sole unifying force to the empire, it would fall as soon to infighting as soon as he died.
Mm-hmm.
Two, everyone had to know what chaos was, how to recognize it for what it is, and had to be prepared to fight against it, or the empire would fall. Which is where his famous quote of, "No, no, we do not require magical powers to fight the adversaries of chaos. Men with stout hearts and long halberds will do the job just as well." This man looked at the chaos infused, not 8, 9 foot tall, clad in full plate armor with swords as big as your leg, chaos champions, and said, "No, we can just give a guy a long stick with a pike and an axe on the end, and we got this." And the third thing, go ahead.
No, just some of this seems like, anime yeah. Typical, anime logic of like, if we believe hard enough and we look down at our fists hard enough, we will win.
Yes. And the third thing he recognized was they needed a system of succession that would not rely on someone being born into the position.
Mm-hmm.
So he gathered together the chieftains and made them counts of the empire, and told them that that from now on they would elect their leader and set out the imperial constitution to govern the empire. He spent 50 years. Remember, he's already been campaigning for 30, which means at this point he's reached some of the longest human to live categories.
Right, and even
in this setting.
And we discussed in Go Trek and Felix, 40 is usually kind of when you bite the bullet on average, and the fact that he's not only at this point when he's forming the empire, how old is he?
He's over 100.
And he's just a regular magic dude, regular vanilla dude, but probably because everyone believes in him, he gets that
Yeah, just pure levels of belief being channeled into him, creating manifestations of magic to keep him going. So he told he got all this together. He spent 50 years campaigning it, solidifying it, putting people in line, putting people to task. He impeached elector counts who tried to undermine this system of government. He did everything he could to make sure that as far as anyone was concerned, from now on, this is how things will be. And then he announced his abdication and told the elector counts, elect someone else. And as soon as that person was crowned emperor, he packed up and left.
Yeah, packed up, left. Didn't die. Packs up and just went, all right, see you later.
And because of the shrines and religious belief and everything instilled into him, he gave a big goodbye speech and walked out. And that goodbye speech is emblazoned in gold plaques at the base of the Imperial Palace for anyone to come read.
Now,
because of that, he ascended to being a god.
He ascended to being a god.
Yep.
Yeah, that answered the question I was about to ask. So he doesn't die; he just becomes a god.
He ascends to godhood.
So
he ascends to godhood, and he ascends to godhood in such a way that the depictions of him in the realm of chaos have him walking up to the chaos gods and just smacking them with a giant warhammer and telling them no. And I'm just like,
V, can you send me a picture of what you feel is the best representation of this man? Because I don't want to Google search it. I want you to tell me, okay, if I am to get an image of this man in my head, I want to see this image.
So, this is the official image of him on the throne of godhood.
Okay.
And this is the last known image painted of him as a man.
I like also that it like they kept him like the second one you sent me. It's like there's still some gruff there, but it doesn't look like over the top beefcake. Like the first image, he's in armor, but I'm willing to bet his body build's about the same in the first one, which then makes it even more impressive.
So here's the image of him from the cover of his of his third book.
Okay.
He's kind of a beefcake. He's kind of got the muscles.
Yeah, I can see some beef in there.
I mean, he doesn't have like abs. He's got like the strongman belly.
Yeah,
but
which to me
man,
I'm like, as a straight male, I'm still like, okay, we need to normalize strongman build.
So the Elector Counts were put into this position where they had to figure out who was going to be emperor from now on because Sigmar had specifically gone out of his way to never marry anyone, and at the time he started his crusade, he swore celibacy and kept that. So he has no blood heir, no wife, nothing.
Yeah, no quote unquote bastard children, nothing.
Nothing. So there's no bloodline of Sigmar. It doesn't exist. If someone claims to be blood of Sigmar, you know they are lying.
Or they're a halfling that wants to just say it. Because then you tell me there's
Correct.
a few there's a few that allegedly say that, but that's up for debate. But anyways, yeah, vow of celibacy, kicks ass in war for many years.
Yeah.
Puts together the
And then
empire and then becomes a god.
Becomes a god, leaves. So the empire, however, gets put into a crisis because Sigrid, a man from Stirland, which this is one of the reasons why Stirland sucks. Never go to Stirland. We're going to talk about all the provinces of the empire in later episodes, each individually, but Stirland sucks. Boiled beer, really? Boiled beer?
Even as someone who doesn't drink.
Sigrid only ruled for a year and died in a hunting accident.
In this setting, that's absolutely embarrassing.
And it would be one thing if it was like he died in a hunting accident and it was like it was like, you know, a big animal or
like,
something.
yeah, mauled by a bear or something. I'm like, okay, you went out like a boss.
No, one of his flushers thought he was the animal and shot him.
Oh my god, that's embarrassing. Oh wow, that's embarrassing.
So anyway, the next emperor, Heinrich the First. So Heinrich decided that they needed to recognize elector counts. And if there's enough likes on this episode, if there are 30 upvotes on this episode, I will set aside a private episode to go in detail for every single emperor and empress. But Heinrich decided
sweet. We get
that
empresses, sweet.
So Heinrich decided all elector counts needed something to immediately, directly recognize an elector count. And he had the rune fangs forged, which are runic swords emblazoned with magic that are only allowed to be wielded by an elector count. And each one, as a part of the runic magic, each one has a rune crafted by a dwarven smith called Aldrich the Mad. That's how crazy this smith is. The dwarves call him the Mad. Anyway, he creates a rune specifically for each of these swords, and there's only one of each of these swords in existence, and every one of these swords does something entirely different. For instance, Averland is called Mother's Ruin, or the Sword of Ruin. Hawkland is called the Goblin Bane Sword. Ostmark has the Troll Cleaver.
I assume it's really good at fighting trolls.
The Sword of Reichland is carved out of a dragon's tooth.
That's brutal.
And so you get a series of emperors. who don't really get who get one major thing done. So the next Emperor Fulk founds the cult of Sigmar and founds the religion around Sigmar. He also moved the capital to Null. That did not go well. Wilhelm I was the first emperor to be considered a tyrant. He was not only impeached, but executed for his tyranny.
Oh, shit.
And is said to haunt the city of Altdorf. Later, he was reanimated during the end times by Vlad von Karstein to serve him. Hudron the Furious decided he needed to prove himself as emperor and went off and killed a great dragon and died in the process. He served for 1 year.
Okay, these people need to, like, calm down. This is, like... I'm already starting to see examples of toxic masculinity.
Sigismund went and conquered the city of Marienburg, which is the largest port in the empire. It's the place where most of the trade from overseas comes in. It's also the only port that has immediate direct access to the ocean, instead of like a inlet or a river that leads out to the ocean, or the sea of swords north of the empire towards Norska. Marienburg actually goes straight into the Great Ocean, so it's the fastest way by ship in and out of the empire. Siegfried the Lawgiver tried to move the capital city back to Null. You can see a thing here where they keep trying to move the capital city there, and it's just not working.
What is wrong with? Is it one of these, like, there's some big problem in its current location, or we have a if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Well, one, Altdorf has the will eventually. Right now, during this time, Altdorf doesn't have the full college set up yet, but they're working on it. Altdorf is considered the center of magic and the center of culture for the Empire.
Mm-hmm. But why are they trying to move it?
Well, because Null's a smaller city, but it's a nicer city in a lot of ways. But also, Null keeps getting burned down.
It's literally that one scene in Monty Python where it's like, I built it, and then it fell into the swamp. I built another one, that one fell into the swamp. I built a third one, that fell over and fell into the swamp. That kind of deal.
Yeah. Siegfried I tried to establish an order of dragon riders. He died in battle by being burned alive by his mount.
Okay, this is turning into a Monty Python sketch right now.
Sigisfried IV is the next emperor. He put in significant efforts to colonize the Grey Mountains, which would eventually be disrupted by vampires of the Vampire Coast.
Regular vampires?
Nope. There were vampires of the Vampire Coast who'd made their way inland.
These aren't the zombie vampire pirates?
These are the zombie vampire pirates.
They make their way in every episode! We need to do an episode just on them. I feel like I think
they are on the list. They are on the list. Up next, we have Sigismund IV. We have Joachim II. He became known as the Witch Hunter Emperor and established the Order of Witch Hunters.
How long did he last? Please tell me more than a year.
52 years.
Okay, that's impressive.
Then we have Ludwig the Fat, the guy who, as a joke, from a suggestion of his halfling jester, established the Moot as the land of halflings. If you remember the halfling episode, how that happened. We have Boris the First, who ruled for an exceptional long time, and was ruling nearly for 30 years while trying to fight the Black Death. The Black Death would eventually take him.
Still 30 years, not bad.
We have Mandred II, who moved the capital back to Altdorf after the Skaven burned Null to the ground. He also became known as the Skaven Slayer because of how many Skaven he killed.
Oh, he actually went
This
into
is
battle?
before this is before a guy made it where you're not allowed to say Skaven exists anymore.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we're still in that era of this world's history. Okay.
So now there are two Imperial history books on emperors.
Is it?
Pre
Mhm.
there's pre-Mad Emperor and post-Mad Emperor.
Oh boy.
Pre-Mad Emperor history books still call Manfred II Manfred the Skaven Slayer and talk about the Great Skaven Wars for Wizenland. Post the Mad Emperor, Manfred II was said to, and I quote, he rebuilt Null and ruled with honor and distinction. And that is the entirety of everything they talk about with him. Because everything else he did was kill Skaven.
Hmm.
There was Emperor Otto, who was such a weak emperor that the Elector Counts basically bullied and bossed him around. And then there was Beatrice, the monumentally cruel,
Uh-oh.
who was so off kilter that during the next phase of the Empire, there was a point where they had a civil war and there were three separate emperors at the same time.
Oh my god.
However, it's during this civil war time, that the one true emperor, the person who's actually sitting on the throne of Altdorf,
Yeah.
did sign an alliance with Kislev that stated should the Empire or Kislev be in danger of falling, both of the other party would respond and send assistance.
Oh.
And that alliance has stuck for 1,000 years.
Is there a reason why it's stuck?
Because Kislev does not disappoint on their word. They said they'd do it. And even the 2 times the Empire hasn't shown up, the Empire's had to pay Kislev for those 2 times. In terms of, here's some money, here's some help rebuilding, we're sorry.
Okay, interesting.
So we get past... And the era of 3 emperors is its own episode. It's 1,000 years of imperial civil war, chaos, and insanity. There are multiple male and female emperors at this time. It is pure and simple crazy train.
1,000-year civil war.
There are notable true emperors. There are notable emperors of Ostland. There is the Emperor of Middenland, and there is the Emperor of Marienburg, all vying for the right to say they are the true emperor.
I'm noticing a theme with Games Workshop, and they have a little bit of an obsession with an emperor.
Yeah, they do. They really do. But this period of civil war ends with Magnus the Pious, who founds, who as a part of reuniting the empire, and he becomes a victor for Kislev during the quote Great War of Chaos, and he reunited the empire and he founded formally the colleges of magic, whereas before in Altdorf there were like 16 different buildings that all operated on different rules for colleges of magic. He brought them all together under one roof because Magnus the Pious was a mage himself. He brought them all together, and Magnus the Pious is considered the greatest emperor since Sigmar. It's been 2,300 years since Sigmar when he gets on the throne.
Jesus, that's the equivalent that's the equivalent of, slightly political, but it's a good comparison, of like saying we haven't had for just argument's sake, we haven't had a good president since FDR. Like that feels like the equivalent.
But he gets everyone together. He officially founds the College of Magic. He signs an agreement with Kislev in order to prevent a prophecy from the Ice Witch, from the Kislev Ice Witches, who at this time now rule over Kislev. So there may be a patriarch that's in charge of the Church of Ursus, but there's an Ice Witch on the Kislev throne from this time forward. And it had been an Ice Witch on the throne from about the year 1500. It's kind of crazy how that happened. And that's going to be in the Kislev episode where we're going to talk about how they switched from having a Tsar to the Ice Witches being in charge. But anyway, he also makes an agreement with them that their male mages can be sent to the Imperial College of Magic to prevent a prophecy of the Ice Witches falling. And so for the last 250 years of the setting, Kislev sends all the male magic casters, if they're not killed on the spot, if the parents can afford to send them, they send them to the College of Magic in Altdorf and never see them again. Then we have a bunch of not very notable emperors. Then we have Dieter the Incompetent.
Quick side.
Go ahead.
I'm noticing a theme of probably... Fee, you obviously have much more experience and knowledge on this than I do. But I can feel we can trace some of the issues in terms of human society and not in this world to the fact that there seems to be a theme of sending off children to places and not letting them grow with family and adulthood.
Yeah, no, there's a big part of that happens. But at this point,
next one.
The most notable emperor before Karl Franz is Dieter the Incompetent, who sold Marienburg and Westerland their independence in return for a significant bribe because he had bankrupted the imperial treasury. Whoops.
And he is even the only one who's been able to pull off that.
Yep. There is one other notable emperor that's happened. Mathis IV. This is before Karl Franz. He decided to disguise himself incognito and venture among the people to find out what his subjects actually thought of him. No one saw him after that ever again. That to this day, there are still vagrants who turn up claiming to be him.
Now, is there obviously a mark he had or something that people know, no, you're not him?
Just a mark, but there were certain things he did before he went off into the streets that he placed a letter into the care of the Temple of Sigmar at the Imperial Palace that said that if anyone came back claiming to be him and could not recite that letter verbatim, they were not him.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And then we have Karl Franz, who's the current emperor. There's a shitload about Karl Franz. He's ruled for 20 years. He rules for 20 years. He's the emperor at the end times. He rides a giant fuck-off griffin that he's raised since it hatched out of an egg. It actually bonded to him like a bird bonds to a parent, as the first thing it saw was him. And he is referred to as the protector of the empire, Sigmar's heir, and the defiler of the dark.
Okay, there's a lot of titles that I want to break down. So what's his first title?
Protector of the empire.
Okay, that one's kind of obvious, as you know, the emperor. Second one?
Sigmar's heir.
Was that a title he gave himself, or did someone else give him that title?
So, the hammer Galmaraz, which is the warhammer that all emperors are required to wield, and empresses, when he picked it up, the Dwarven king was present, and the hammer let off a bright light. The Dwarven king opened his book of histories and flipped back and showed a picture of what it looked like according to the mad runesmith who made the hammer at the time. When Sigmar picked up that hammer, and it was almost identical. So from then on, he's called Sigmar's heir because the giant fuck off Warhammer said, "No, this is my guy."
Okay, cool. So, okay, that title works.
And then Defiler of the Dark because he has gone out of his way to purge corruption in the Empire,
Ooh.
to empower witch hunters, but also reel them in at the same time. He doesn't let witch hunters abuse their power, but he's given them also a larger variety of tasks to perform in order to ensure to keep the elements of chaos and corruption at bay.
This dude sounds pretty cool.
And he personally, when he got this title, he led a secret mission under the city of Null. And back when Null had been destroyed by Skaven, he led this secret mission down there into the Undercities, found the Skaven Undercity, and destroyed it. And when I say he destroyed it, he led a massive army underground into the Skaven's home territory and made sure not a single Skaven lived to tell the tale of the destruction of the Undercity under Null.
Now, I'm sure the answer is going to be no, but I'm just seeing, you never know. Remember when we did the Skaven, there was that very small that only had a paragraph, and I found it was so cool. Skaven who have seen the way of Sigmar. Were they involved at all in that?
It is whispered in the dark that there is an advisor to him who is secretly getting intelligence from those particular Skaven and passing it on to him. And he is aware of them. But
Cool.
that's a whisper in the dark.
But still, and I said it on the Skaven episode, but I love that concept so much. If I wasn't working on a ship right now, I would have joined the campaign and played, a Skaven who follows Sigmar, because it's just
you'd have been like Prince Sigmar, Skaven. And everyone's like, "Are you okay?"
because it's right, and it's again because it's such a cool idea of like this of. Yes, I've ranted about it before, but I just love it. So, anyways, go on.
So, we get to all. So that's the most of the history of the Empire. If I sat here and went over all of the history of the Empire, we would be here for 5 hours. Because one of the things about the Empire is they are very good at keeping extremely detailed records of everything that happens. And the reason they do this is because they want to be able to train the Imperial State Army. Note I said the Imperial State Army. So, unlike other states that raise armies as necessary, the Empire of Man in Warhammer Fantasy maintains a state army at all times with standards of equipment, uniform, and disciplinary training. Remember how I said in the introductory episode that there's 1,800 people who live in abject poverty for every Imperial Great Swordsman that walks on the battlefield?
Uh-huh.
That is because all of these guys have to be a certain level of both proficiency, and so this is what an Empire Great Swordsman looks like.
Oh, damn.
And he's wearing the colors of his Elector Count.
And also, what's the things he just slain that's laying on the ground?
That is a Warrior of Chaos in full armor.
Damn.
He took on that man and won.
Is this
and this is what an Imperial Captain looks like.
Is this basically fantasy Space Marine, basically?
No, they are normal men.
Really? So this is just a dude who's just been trained. He's just a dude.
He has been trained extensively, and he has trained all of his life. His soul, unlike the other states where, like, for instance, we talked about Bretonnia and the Knights, and how the Bretonian Knights still have to do, like, things a noble does. Like, they have to rule over land. They have to make administrative decisions. They have to do all this other stuff, right?
Right. Which in anything, when someone who's specialized then has to do something that's not their specialty, no matter how good, unless they're a rare example, they're not going to do it well.
If you so one out of every four children, regardless if they're male or female, according to Karl Franz, must be given over to the imperial state when they reach the age of 16, and they are given a job in the imperial army. Period.
So you have women also in this position kicking ass too, basically.
As of Karl Franz, yes, women
Yeah.
are women are not only allowed to serve, they are required. And so this is what an Empire swordsman looks like. They have a full plate, and you notice they also have like standards of like how their hair looks and everything. Um, Here is a female great swordsman or great swordwoman. They have standards of clothing, standards of armor, standards of weaponry. Everything has to be precise, and their entire life for the next 40 years is promised as an Imperial State Trooper, or they die.
Also, gotta say, while I made this mention before, I'm not the biggest fan of Warhammer's models art style. Still, her uniform's pretty cool.
And they pay them exceptionally well. They're paid well. They're taken care of. They're provided food and housing by imperial taxes. One of the funny things about Gotrek and Felix, they talk about the window tax.
Yes.
And the reason the window tax comes up is because early in Karl Franz's reign, Middenheim tries to rebel and say that Karl Franz is not the rightful emperor. So he has to rebuild the army after that revolt.
Mm.
And he knows he has to do it quickly, or things like orcs and Skaven, which he knows about Skaven.
Right.
And or ogres or something, or the problems in Sylvania with the vampire counts. If he doesn't get that army rebuilt and marshaled, they're going to come knocking, and it ain't going to be fun for anybody involved.
Interesting. So, though, I'm going to ask the stupid question. Why, instead of doing the window tax, why couldn't he have just justified saying, I'm sorry, I have to do more taxes so that way we don't get run over?
Because the imperial constitution that is laid out requires that taxes be for a specific thing that a person has or possesses. And also a part of that imperial constitution abolishes serfdom.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. I still feel he could have at least made the announcement going, yeah, sorry about this tax, guys, but it's kind of so we don't die.
So they work more on a Roman system in the sense that you, as a citizen of the empire, have your head of your family has a lint from the empire identifying all of your family members. You have to go to a specific city to pay your taxes, and you have to show proof of if someone's died, you have to show they died. If someone doesn't own something anymore, you have to show who the new owner is. I mean, it's a very detailed system. So they actually don't collect taxes all at once.
Oh, okay.
Instead, they collect them throughout the year. You have a date of the year you were supposed to be back at your city, or the head of your family has to make the journey to your city to present themselves to be taxed for your family. And your head of your family is not just going to go there empty-handed. He's going to come to everybody else and be like, tax money, because I'm not getting arrested for this shit. So their system of taxes is enforced not only by their tax collectors, but also by the heads of families who have to show up to pay these taxes. And then they have bounty hunters and people of note who are prepared to go hunt down people who don't pay their taxes.
Now, Fee, the previous empire we were talking about was more based on French. I'm assuming, is this the one that's more based on the British Empire, or what would you say?
It's more based on the Holy Roman Empire,
Okay.
which was neither holy nor Roman. Just for you history
Right.
buffs, it was neither of those things. But it's more based on that. Um, and so they have this imperial state army that they have to maintain and everything, and they do it through a variety of system of taxes, tariffs, and if anyone has ever studied the Victorian age, one of the reasons the British East India Company was such a big deal is because it was a private entity. Most industry during the Industrial Revolution was state owned and operated, meaning at the end of the day, the highest share of profits came to the state. It was only through the enriching of people to achieve a middle class and an upper class that was non-noble that private investment could occur. So we're at the stage where most of the industries are still owned by the state. They're either owned by the state or they're owned by a guild. And a lot of things that people buy, like bread, like you go to a bakery in the empire and the bakery is run by a person, yes, and that person's family may have been running that bakery for generations, but at the end of the day, who owns that bakery? The emperor. His family has been entrusted to run it and receives a good share of the profits, but the lion's share still goes up the chain. And the reason the lion's share still goes up the chain is because are you still there?
Yeah, I was just
Major?
listening. You were just. It was like there was
Okay.
nowhere I needed to. Go
Okay.
on.
I just wanted to make sure. But the reason the lion's share still goes up to the emperor is to pay for the state troops, to pay for the roads, to maintain the old world's first independent police force, to pay for witch hunters, to pay for all of the stuff to keep the threats at bay.
Wait, so a witch hunter is technically an employee of the state?
The witch hunters are employees of the state who report to witch hunter generals, and every elector count has a witch hunter general that is required to be that they don't get to pick who it is. The Institute of the Witch Hunters does. And that person sits with them as an advisor, but also that witch hunter general directly only reports to the emperor. And the emperor reports to the emperor and his witch hunter general, and the only person who can look at a witch hunter and go no is the emperor. The only person in the entire empire who can look at a witch hunter and directly tell them no, and the witch hunter be powerless, is the emperor.
It's just interesting. Oh, I just
Um,
go on.
but that was a system of balances that he put in place whereby a witch hunter has to submit themselves once a month to a priest of Sigmar. That priest of Sigmar can never be the same priest of Sigmar.
Now, for clarification, what do you mean by they have to submit to a priest?
The priest is going to pour holy water over them and cast a blessing of Sigmar that if there is any chaos corruption in them, it will burn it out. And if there's too much chaos corruption, they will erupt in flames and burn alive.
Okay.
And that's how they keep corrupt witch hunters out. Is if you fall to chaos, you're not going to be a witch hunter anymore real quick. Because if you didn't submit to a priest and that priest report back to a witch hunter general that they saw you, witch hunter general is going to put a bounty out on you and they come and looking for you.
Okay, cool.
Now, there are instances where witch hunters go out for more than a month and come back, and there's a bounty on them. But if you come back and submit yourself to a priest for confession and for the test, then your name is cleared.
Oh, okay. So even within it,
So there
there's not
that's one
flexible.
of the big differences between Old World and 40K. If you fall to the forces of chaos, but bring yourself back and make an honest effort to atone, you'll be welcomed back in.
Yeah, which to me is, first of all, much closer to reality, and secondly, it just makes much better storytelling, quote unquote, the Paul Simon quote I like using. Again, this gives this whole bit and also a journey of a character of like maybe being tempted, but their heart is still there and they still want to be good, and then their journey to quote unquote go back to purity.
Like there's a really good instance in the Gotrek and Felix novels where a person is like on the edge, and he releases Gotrek and Felix, and at the end of the novels he submits himself to the Imperial State Police. Um, and the witch hunter informs him that normally his crimes would warrant execution, but because he turned his back on the things, on the evil things in the dark, instead he will face 10 years of atonement at the witch hunter's discretion. And if he finishes his atonement, all will be forgiven.
Again, which to me is just so, there's just so many levels within that, both but from a religious, but also just from a ethics, but also from a storytelling. Like, all right, that's cool.
Like in 40K, if you fall to chaos, you can't come back. They'll kill you. Even if you come back and save an entire Imperial planet, because you fell in the first place, they just kill you. And I'm just like, yeah, so there's no motivation for redemption, and therefore once you fall, you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
But in old world, in old world, if you fall and then you decide, no, wait, this is wrong, and you make a genuine effort to pull yourself back against the forces of chaos and come back to the side of order, they'll welcome you back in, let you atone for your sins, and put you back into society.
They'll still give you side eye about it.
Oh yeah, no, you're gonna have a witch hunt. You're right. You're gonna have a witch hunter watching your back for the rest of your days. But
right. But there's still a
you're
path that you
given
can
the
take.
chance.
Yeah, you're given the chance, which is, again, it gives so much more possibility both in life, but also just story. That even if someone is on your ass the whole time, it's not the end of your story. It's just a different path.
And now I'm going to get into one aspect of the Empire that I need people to understand. And it's the reason why the ban on talking about Skaven has been kept. Skaven are actively suppressed by an order of magic called the Grey Order, also known as the Shadowmancers. They are human wizards and human witch hunters who actively work to prevent people from knowing of the Skaven's existence. And the reason why Karl Franz, the man who marched into Null and burned a Skaven Undercity, kept that, is because he knows how bad the Skaven problem truly is. And he knows that no matter what he could do, if every Skaven in the world was told the Empire is coming for us and needs to be blotted out, the Empire would not stand a chance.
Okay.
He has seen their horrible abominations. He has seen their warpstone technology. He has seen the problems and understands that the near million Skaven that were under Null is a drop in the bucket of the enemy they would face.
Yeah, it's kind of this almost like 3D chess kind of game of going, if people know, it will be even worse than if they know. Obviously, I'm usually on the side of there should be information, but considering the way that this scenario has worked out, it to a degree makes sense why they're trying to suppress it.
If people, so it's like playing 3D chess as you described, but a third of the opponent's figures are invisible.
Yeah.
But he can only move the invisible figures when you acknowledge where one of them is. And if you were to acknowledge where all of them are, your opponent would get 1/3 more figures than you have.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly, because he could reveal all of them and come after you with all of them. And then and on top of that, the moment you would acknowledge his invisible army, he gets 2 moves a turn to your 1.
Yeah. And also,
So
it's also the challenge of you have even if you know, your armies don't know, so they also have the element of surprise that you don't.
So it has become there is there so it has become do you know anything about BattleTech? Because BattleTech is the best example I can give of this.
No, unfortunately. If you
Okay.
want to give a strategy example fee, Hearts of Iron 4 is unfortunately going to
So
be the
it has
best one.
become it has become as if there are two histories of the Empire: the
Hmm.
history we know and the secret history.
Ah,
The
okay.
secret history of the witch hunters and the Grey Order dedicated to keeping the Skaven at bay and keeping them out of influencing the Empire. If you were to, it is a two-layer history whereby you can easily learn the history that everyone knows if you were to travel around, read history books, and get all the information.
Yeah.
But you could only know the hidden shadow history if you were actively in the war to stop the Skaven, and you could never know the full shadow history from beginning to end because there is too much that has to be continuously concealed to make sure that the Skaven do not rise up and wipe out the Empire
Well, I
until
got.
such a
Mhm.
time as the witch hunters have destroyed enough Skaven that they can safely only have to fight them as an invading army rather than as an army that already sits among them.
For me, at least, I don't even need a comparison. That explanation makes total sense.
One of the memes from the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay game is the Ratcatcher job class.
Hmm.
And the thing people don't realize is the Ratcatcher job class is one of the most important, actually, and one of the most common job classes for homeless beggars to be pressed into, because the Empire will provide tools for rat catching or sewer jacking, and will provide you with everything you need to do the job, even though the job sucks, because you are actually cannon fodder in the secret war. You just don't know it.
Okay, since now the history, without going to, what then actually do the rat catchers then do? Do they just fight Skaven?
Mostly, they catch rats, like big rat, small rat, doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But every once in a while, they'll catch a skaven, or every once in a while they'll catch like a nest of skaven of newborn skaven children that are just big rats. Um, and the same thing with sewer jacks. Every once in a while they'll run into a skaven, and what the sewer jacks are told is, no, you didn't. That was just a hairy man. He was tainted by chaos. Throw the body in the sludge. So they are actively being suppressed to
Mm.
keep the secret. And usually the suppression starts with a do what I tell you to, here's some extra money for your efforts. And if that doesn't work, then the ante's up. Do what I tell you to, take the money, or I've got a loony bin cell for you ready to go.
I would take the shut up money.
And if that doesn't work, well, that rat catcher just disappeared in the sewer. We don't know what happened to him.
Mm. Yeah, we're in a pre-OSHA world, so just random accident happened.
Hey, you have to go into parts of the sewers that don't have handrails, and he fell in the sludge and didn't come up. Sorry. Bad way to go. Um, there are two primary religions in the Empire, and then there are a bunch of sub-religions. So you
Okay,
have the cult of Sigmar is the big one.
right.
It's the one everybody follows. There was a cult here, however, before Sigmar, referred to as the cult of the wolf or the cult of Ulrich. Now,
Uh
notice
huh.
I'm calling them cults
Mm.
because that's what they are. It is a religious cult that follows certain religious tenets. The cult of the wolf are the kind of the more fanatical people, whereas priests of Sigmar can summon miracles, for instance.
Ah.
The cult or repel the darkness of chaos with sheer prayer, or imbue their weapon in such a way that no agent of chaos can stand up to it. The cult of the wolf are the people who are like the Knights Templar about going on a crusade.
Mm-hmm.
They are the Empire's equivalent of Deus Vult. And then the other cults are smaller, but serve specific purposes. So you have Tal, who is known to be the person who tends the wild places.
Mm-hmm.
He's he is a husband to Raya, who is the woman who is a womanly figure who provides agriculture and birth and is often tenant to farmers of the empire or to brewers in particular.
Wait, hold on, hold
You
on, hold
have
on. Stop, stop. Pump the brakes, pump the brakes.
go ahead.
I like the idea. It makes sense. I can see the connection, but I like this idea of, is she a goddess or wait, what is she considered?
She is a goddess.
You have a goddess of farming and beer, which I can see, you have to grow hops to make beer, but I just find it to be a very
Her depiction is her holding wheat, a sickle, and in the lower right, those are kegs. Those are brewing kegs.
now it may just be the art, but she has a look of I am so fed up with this shit.
Yes. She's all her and Tal are also the gods that have in that are that they're worshipped by some of the elves, but they're only worshipped as a side god. But more
Ah,
importantly, these are the two who, if you go off into the forest, Tal and Raya will either find you worthy and return you, or there have been several instances where the forest just kind of swallows people up.
mm-hmm.
In one instance, it is said that Raya swallowed a chaos raiding force, and none of them lived. They were seen raiding a village. The village was burned to the ground. They went off into the forest to lose pursuit by Imperial troops, and the Imperial troops heard nothing but screams and panic all night and could not find a trace of the warband in the morning.
She doesn't fuck around.
Um, in addition to that, you have Manan, aka the god of the sea. We talked about him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you have the god Mor, who's the god of death, who is solely responsible for seeing souls safely across the realm of chaos to paradise. But also, he's the guy who you call to say, "Hey, we got undead. Send you knights." He comes around and just stomps undead. That's his job.
Well, yeah, you think, yeah. So he deals with death, so he kind of knows what to do. So is he kind of like
yeah.
the proper interpretation of the Grim Reaper, who the Grim Reaper is not there to kill you, he's just to guide you on your journey to the afterlife.
Correct. He also does not carry a sickle. He carries a staff by which his raven, his messenger raven, lands on.
Cool.
We also have Verena, who is the goddess of justice and learning. She is often depicted outside of every single imperial school and courthouse.
Obviously, some, a lot of I'm already seeing. I'm sure there's huge. I'm sure the artist would even say it. Inspired by, I think it's at least an American, the Blind Justice statue.
Yes.
Yeah, but
And
also
the
a lot
reason
more.
why she's the
But,
reason why she's the goddess of learning is because it's the idea that if you are blind, you only know what you are told. I am here to show you the way without you losing the knowledge you have learned you should have.
and I got it. The picture you sent me, I would have that as a poster. It's pretty cool.
We have Meridia, who is the goddess of war.
So we have a god and goddess of war. Or in
Correct.
this, okay.
We have Shalia. All priests of Shalia, all priests of Shalia are medics. They are also sworn to pacifism.
Hmm.
They are not allowed to carry a weapon. They are not allowed to even strike someone down who is threatening their life. And then lastly, I cannot get any further without talking about Renaud. Renaud, the god of trickery and luck,
Oh boy.
who is depicted as a cat with a emperor's flush, which in our version of poker would be a royal flush and a pair of dice.
Like,
A black cat, no less.
so as a regular cat, not anthropomorphic cat, regular cat.
Regular cat
Interesting.
with what is basically a royal flush in poker and a pair of dice, and it's a black cat, and it's a black witch's cat.
Nice.
Um, Only the truly desperate or those who are gambling will ever pray to this man. And priests of his cult do not stick around for long. They move from place to place because they fully understand that as soon as things start going badly, they're getting blamed. And that's the religion. That is all of the religious figures in the Empire. The Empire has outlawed Cain, the elven god of blood and murder.
Okay, yeah, I can see that one.
All chaos gods are outlawed, just flat out.
That makes sense.
Cathayan dragon worship is outlawed, because in Cathay they worship dragons. Dragons who can turn into people are their rulers and act as gods. And Cathay practices atheism, so they're like, no, you're not allowed to worship those.
See up until you got to atheism, I'm like, ooh, dragons that can turn into people, or vice versa. I'm like, ooh, and I'm like, oh, which that'll be an interesting episode just on that. Like, how much is on them, just out of curiosity?
A ton.
Like, we could do a full episode on just them.
We can do a full episode on the Kingdom of Id, Nippon, and Cathay. With like 3 separate episodes. Just the Far East. Also, the dark aspect of Banan that I talked about in an earlier episode, Stormfells, he's banned from worship too. Just outright. Troop-wise, the last thing you need to know about the Empire before we get into troops, they have established colonies overseas. There's a fortified outpost in Norska that the Empire uses for incursions into Norska to try to chase down people who've raided them from chaos that they've repelled, or to do incursions to try to deal with threats before they show up. Mm-hmm. The incursions aren't always very successful. There's a colony in Albion. And Albion is its own episode because, oh god, that's a nest of worms I don't want to get into. And there's a colony in Lustria that the lizard men don't like that's there. They really don't like that that's there.
Why?
Because it's led by the Imperial Huntsman, who is there to hunt exotic beasts to bring home to the Empire.
Oh, right,
that means, that means, the dinosaurs that the lizard men use.
I forgot how bonkers that episode was. Like, the halfling episodes was just silly, but the lizard folk was just bonkers off the wall. You got frogmen sitting on floating thrones. What? Like, that episode just felt like, I know you weren't, Fee, but it just felt like half the stuff you were just making up just to get my reaction.
All of it was dead serious.
Oh, no, I know you are, but it's like, and they ride dinosaurs. What?
So forces-wise, the Empire it's mostly what you would expect. You have swordsmen, the halberdiers, which I showed you what a halberd was in an earlier episode. Spearmen. The spearmen of the Empire are actually armed with shields, so they have one-handed spears and shields, whereas halberds are kind of more the pikemen. Then you have a catch-all term called Free Company. Free Company is anyone who is not an official state troop who for some reason has joined an Empire army. These are sellswords, mercenaries, cutthroats, bandits who are looking to atone for their crimes, volunteers, people, ne'er-do-wells, what have you. They're also the Free Company are also the only Imperial recognized troops that don't have standardized equipment.
Makes sense, considering how they're formed.
You have Free Company militia, and what this is basically the police force of villages and towns formed up into units into companies and cohorts of people ready to fight on the front line of a battlefield. So when you invade an imperial city, you're not fighting just the defenders of the city. The police force drafts itself into forming organized militia units.
So I'm trying to think of a good real life comparison. So it's like, so in theory, like let's just take your whatever little town, they can in theory also form their own little like militia or defense force.
Yes.
Huh.
Um, you have handgunners. Handgunners use handguns. Now, we think of handguns today as like a pistol,
Yeah.
but the actual origin of a handgun is it's called a handgun because it's a gun that has been shrunk down to be wielded in a man's hand. Because original gunpowder weaponry was only cannons that required setup and crews of people to operate.
Right.
Um, Instead, these guys march like you would expect musketeers.
Okay. So that era of firearms. Gotcha.
And they actually use like because their guns are so heavy, a lot of them actually have like the stick pole that you put out there to brace the gun on
Mm-hmm.
that you sink into the ground. That's how a lot of them brace their guns.
Hold on a quick
Some of them
second.
have some of them also have primitive firearms that are kind of short barrels with a stick out that you hang onto out the back.
Mm-hmm.
And the trigger mechanism is more like a fuse that you just dip into gunpowder to set off. And then some of them have really nice guns that are flintlocks.
You telling me this? I'm picturing. I'm sure you've heard about the copy pasta, the "I own a musket for self-defense" because that's what the founding fathers wanted.
Yep.
This has that energy.
It is. It is 100% that kind of energy. And the Free Company are worse because they usually have like pistols and a handgunner just mixed in with them. So it's like the handgunner fires and the guy runs up with a pistol, and when that fails, they break formation so the cannon behind them can level the rat ogre.
Tally ho, lads!
Um, Imperial archers actually don't have their primary job is not to serve as frontline troops.
Hmm.
Imperial archers serve as scouts. They also serve as assassins, aka they are there to hunt enemy officers.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, they serve as trappers and hunters for the army to forage while it's on the march.
Makes a lot of sense for that kind of position.
Instead, the actual most common ranged unit is the Imperial crossbowman. Because crossbows are easier to train. At this time, they're more reliable than firearms because firearms can still explode for no reason. Just wear and tear and too much gunpowder, kaboom! So you have crossbowmen. They also handgunners are also known to when gunpowder runs dry to pick up a crossbow instead and become a crossbowman on the spot.
Hmm.
Then you have the two forms of elite infantry for the Empire. There's the Great Swords,
Uh-huh.
who, if you have served in the Imperial Army and have been selected to be upgraded to a Great Sword, it's a big deal because that puts you one step away from receiving peerage. Which peerage, for those who aren't aware, is basically what you have to have in most circles to be considered a noble.
Ah.
So if you're selected to be a great sword, it's a big deal. Great swords are also the bodyguards to the emperor. If he is not walking around with his cavalry, he's walking around with his great swords. The other elite infantry are flagellants, and these guys are psychotic.
Wait, hold on. What are they called again?
Flagellants.
Why do I feel like that
you
name?
flagellate yourself.
Again, this is my theory that the Warhammer world is as dark as it is. There's still bits of humor in it.
These men wear no armor.
Okay.
They either carry two hand flails or one great flail. They run around with statements of prophecy nailed into their skin and are completely off kilter insane. They also refuse to run in battle. So once you commit them, they're in. And they work on the sheer tactic of I'm going to I'm going to swing at you so many times that one of these hits is going to kill you. These men are also known to have everything short of decapitation not stop them. At one point, a general of the Empire at a battle of it's a fort. It starts with an H. It's slipping the name of the fort slipping my name. But anyway, he witnessed a flagellant who had been shot through the heart by a goblin's poison arrow continue to kill for an hour before he finally looked up. He was standing next to the general and go, "I'm tired now," and just died on the spot.
Oh, okay. That. I don't know what really to say to that.
These men are crazy.
Yeah, but here's my question. So it's like, is being with them and that makes them crazy, or do they take the crazy and just put them with the other crazy?
They are fanatically devoted to Sigmar to the point that they are willing to sacrifice themselves in the name of anyone who follows Sigmar. They are just that devoted.
Okay.
They spend days and weeks in self-flagellation, in self-reflection, in fanatical prayer, fasting, religious service, and then are just unleashed. And they volunteer for this.
Okay.
They are volunteer devotees of Sigmar for this.
I wonder what Sigmar thinks about these people, because technically, isn't Sigmar still he's a god, and he's still kind of aware and going on with all this stuff?
I really do wonder what he thinks about flagellants too, because he never comments on them. But it's just like, I might want to reel this in just a tiny bit,
Because that's what's interesting. Like I'm sure you, but just to confirm, it's like
I can also imagine him up there going, "I gave you armor. I gave you good weapons. Why are you wielding flails and screaming and running around half naked?"
Well, it's like this other one where, like, even if you don't believe in God, the point still stands. So the meme is basically an angel goes up to God and goes, "God, they're not drinking the cow's milk. Well, I've given them sheep milk. Fine, they're not drinking the sheep milk. Okay, I forget what the other animal is, but then it's like, well, actually, they're not drinking it from any of the animals. What do you mean? They're drinking it from nuts." And God just puts up his hands going, "They're drinking milk from nuts. They're drinking milk from nuts." And I feel Sigmar is doing a similar thing where he's like, yeah, like you just said, I gave them this armor. Why are they going without this armor?
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting because, like, I don't know of all the gods, you know that more than I, but it's just interesting. He is a god that started as a human and ascended to godhood, so he, to a degree, knows how humans think. So I would just be fascinated to hear his thoughts and, like, especially all these emperors, to just him just going, "Oh God, really, you're doing that?" And then, like, the one who died in the hunting accident, he's like, "Why are you in my place? I'm embarrassed for you." Like, God, I feel like that would make a great web series, or even just like a web comic of, like, Sigmar reacts to all the emperors.
So remember how I said this was the crazy technology time of shot and pike? We're about to get into that.
Oh boy.
So you have in the Imperial Cavalry roster Empire Knights, who it's the knightly order. It's the noble household. It's the elite shot cavalry with lances and plate armor and heavy horses, right?
Right.
They also have a pistol. And most knights to become a knight had to be Empire Pistoliers first.
Wait a minute. Say that again?
Most knights who join a knightly order are proven riders of horses and are Empire Pistoliers and Outriders first. Empire Pistoliers and Outriders. Pistoliers have braces of pistols, wear light armor, and ride around and harass people with bullets. And then Outriders ride around with one of three weapons. They either have full-sized rifles while on horseback.
Which impressive.
Uh, they have the multi-barreled rifle repeater, which is a weapon that has 10 barrels that has you have to load. By the way, you still have to load these barrels like you load a musket, so it's powder, wad, ball, stuff down the barrel. They have 10 barrels that rotate, and they fire 10 shots out of this gun and then run away for 5 minutes to reload it. And the other weapon outriders use is bonkers.
Wait, that's its name, or
No, 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 no. It is just bonkers. So,
oh,
have
okay,
you ever heard? So you know what a double barrel shotgun is?
yeah,
I want you to take the same concept
yeah.
and stick a 70 millimeter grenade into the barrel, and that's what they ride around with for grenade launchers. Double barrel hand grenade launchers.
Demo man from TF2 would like to know your location. Ooh, that's smart. Because I was thinking a scenario where you have to light it, shove it down there, pray that you shoot it out beforehand. That's smart. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I just have to, no. We have to pump the brakes at the image of both swords and guns at the same time on the same in the same. I forget what the technical term in military is, but just the same group of soldiers doing that. Not this weird, one side has guns, one doesn't. No, within it has guns and swords within the same side. I know the image you're sending me, Fee, is real, but I don't want to believe what you've sent me. This feels like like crossover fan art. Like I don't mean. Uh huh. Okay. Oh God. No, hold on. Quick question. I know we're going to talk about those. Now, since we have the age of gunpowder and pike, then is armor? Do they like have bulletproof armor or like or design armor around the fact that guns are being used? So you have bulletproof full plate armor. I don't know whether to be. I'm just gonna go. I'm impressed. This is impressive, Fee. I thought we were. I was done getting impressed with this world. No, this is a new one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ah.
So hi everyone, yeah, I'm making a Patreon video as is appropriate. And in the meantime, the only engineer of chaos right now is Stagio Rose. I get it, the economy's kind of fucked, but somebody, anybody, get on up there. Executive Studios, Fop Doodle on Assignment Spaghetti, Stargazer Song, Sundancer, Thomas Curry, thanks for keeping the damn lights on. Special Writing Cannons, Drinking Buddy, Solar Aura, you guys have been here for years and I genuinely appreciate you. Twitty Lounge Pass, Bronze, Sean, you're doing good work. Explosives R&D team. Somebody's got to make the explosives around here. Pony Chick, Riney Dragonwolf, Stormy Skies, Zeeb, and the other person that I missed. I'm sorry I missed you. Office Raiders, Brendan Kendall, Insane Scorpion, Justin Ragers, Carl Branson, Legate Lori, which, by the way, it's her entire fault that we have any RimWorld series. You should be thanking Lori. Testing audience, Paulus the Mad. Meh? Seriously, your name is Meh? Producers credits, Chaos Blur, or David Birch. Final Sight is the reason why we got to play Vampire the Masquerade over Christmas. You can thank Final Sight. Also, Gare Riviere, he's been here since 2014. Anyway, see you all later.